Champions, welcome back to another edition of Ben Plays God Tier. Here we're going to be going over months 3 and 4 of my Journey Journal. So, if I had to summarize months 3 and 4 with just one phrase, it would be one at life. These have been the absolute pinnacle of my experiences with God Tier, and really excited to share some of that with everybody. During month 3, I was able to actually meet with, you can see a picture of me playing over the table with Remus from the community Discord. He lives about 4 hours from me, but had the opportunity to get together over the table in person and play a game of God Tier. Remus also happens to be the team captain for the recent team tournament that I played in. And so this was just a really, really fun time. Really appreciate him being able to come out and play with me. I also heard recently, this is a little bit delayed, about a month ago, got mentioned in the Objective Hex God Tier blog by Grumpy Sam. And we'll talk a little bit more about this article. Really happy with how the article turned out. And just ecstatic to be mentioned by such a pillar of the community. The Objective Hex blog does such a wonderful job at highlighting kind of the strategic depth, as well as just kind of the fundamentals of God Tier, what makes it so enjoyable, and kind of does a good job capturing its essence. So we're really excited to kind of be participating in that side of the community. I also just today got a chance to play with Dave from the community Discord. He's kind of a legend in the community, has been consistently one of the top 8 online players for quite some time, and has been on my hit list, for a matter of speaking, to try and get in a game. Phenomenal player, really kind individual. He ended up spiking a 7% damage roll to win out in round 3 in our game, but was nice enough to play out the remaining fourth and fifth rounds as if that didn't happen. And that was really something I appreciated, because it was a very interesting game state against a top player, and really was kind of looking forward to being able to get a little bit more experience with those matchups, and kind of really highlights the quality of the community in God Tier overall. And it's not just about winning, it's about learning and sharing a lot of these experiences. And so really appreciate Dave for everything that he did playing in that game with me today. I also have spent a great deal of time here over the last couple months trying to grow the local community here in the Twin Cities. Whether that's going and doing demos during demo days at some of the local gaming stores, or playing with some of the newer, younger players, introducing friends and family to the game. Really doing everything I can to try and grow the kind of player base here. I think, as I've mentioned before, God Tier is just criminally underplayed. It's got the most elegant system out of any war game I've ever tried, and really has a lot of aspects that uniquely optimize the fun of kind of tabletop gaming. So really hoping to see that kind of continue to grow, and the local player base expand, and continue to participate in the local scene, as well as online with the Discord community. Also, something that has been kind of fun is I've recently started miniature painting. I dabbled a bit at about 6 years ago, kind of set it aside, and now with kind of getting so engaged into God Tier, wanting to be able to paint my God Tier crews, I've started practicing on some other miniatures just to get my painting experience up just a little bit before I make any attempts at my God Tier warbands. But hoping to get confident enough here in the next little bit that I can start and hopefully be sharing my first ever painted God Tier crew with all of you. Also finished up the team tournament Clash of Worlds, where I went 4-1. That tournament was just fantastic, really well run. Got to experience a plethora of different scenarios. Being a team tournament, it was extra fun to be able to talk with Remus and with Angry Yeti, my teammates, on strategy, on approaches to games, reviewing, picking up more lessons learned from each of those games. Really good time. I'm currently participating in another online tournament called the Ascended Arena Open, which is a diminishing pool draft, so you can't reuse the same champions. And starting off 1-1 there with my loss this morning to Dave. Excited to see how that one kind of continues. The premise is really neat with the diminishing pool and having to think about as you're drafting what champions you want to leave, what champions are, pair really well together that you maybe don't want to break up. It kind of adds a definite depth to the drafting portion. So in terms of channel progress, my channel content slowed slightly due to the amount of energy that I'm putting into local play. A lot of my free time is spent going out to the local gaming stores, hoping to get a little bit more frequency with my YouTube posts here. But I was able to publish a tabletop simulator primer video, as well as a video on my SFG4 and 513 lists kind of recently. As of today, I published my first full game against Dave, which kind of includes those 2 bonus rounds at the end. For the moment, I've kind of backburnered my work on a strategy video for follower placement and some of the God tier puzzles. Definitely planning to continue to pick those up. But as I mentioned, putting the majority of my effort into kind of local over-the-table play while I try and kind of get some additional momentum here in my area. So moving on, this is new for the Journey Journal, but I thought that it would be a really great way to help highlight some of the community content that has been coming out and raise awareness as best I can for it. This is the New Player Intro to Every Crew by Grumpy Sam on the Objective Hex blog. This is probably the most exciting piece of content that I have encountered since I started playing God tier. When I first started playing, the very first thing that I wanted was just a summary of what's the play style for every champion. Because when you're first learning the game, you can look at the cards and how you think they're going to play, right? That perceived play style is sometimes different on paper than it is in practice. And it's not really always obvious how difficult those champions are to play. And so, Grumpy kind of took some of my comments on Discord and just hammered out this phenomenal article. I've shared it around. It's already been of great use to some of the new players in my area in terms of trying to select which champions to start experimenting with, which ones to start when they're buying, which ones maybe to start adding in as they get more and more familiar. Wonderful tool. Really appreciate Grumpy both for the shout out at the beginning of this article and for putting the time in. I think this is going to be a wonderful reference for a long time to come. Also, talking about building communities, Jeff Gearbox Mitchell guest wrote on the Objective Hex blog about building an in-person God tier community. For anyone else interested in trying to kind of raise awareness, build up that local play, this is an amazing resource. One of the things that Jeff did is in this article, he has a link to a 1-page primer for God tier, kind of all of the God tier rules condensed down into 1 page. This is something that I had the privilege to work with him on, as well as Grumpy Sam, and really, really happy with how that 1 page turned out. I've now used it probably a half dozen times, and on average, I'm getting people up to speed to start rolling their first dice within 10 minutes, having fully understood the entire rule set. So excited about how that kind of has come out. If you're interested in that, I'll have a link to this blog post, and within this blog post there's also a link to Jeff's 1-page primer. As well, I have a very similar kind of two-page primer that I've been using for local play, printing front and back. And me and Jeff share the same second page that summarizes all of the kind of rules in one really easy to reference sheet. And then my front page has a little bit of some kind of soft descriptions on why play God tier. And this goes back to my, why play God tier, why did I start this channel video, and really trying to summarize that for new players that maybe haven't been exposed or aren't familiar with God tier yet. It's also got a link to a handful of God tier resources, some of which are specific to my local. I'll have a link to this as well in my YouTube video description if anyone would like to use it as a template, or just blatantly copy that second page, which I think is a wonderful resource as we introduce this game to new players. I debated a lot whether or not I wanted to show this in this video. In general, I'm not really a big fan of tier lists. I think that there is so much context that is lacking when you look at these. It's so easy to misinterpret them. But there was a fair amount of discussion that happened on the Discord, and so I thought it was worth kind of calling out. So this first one on the above left is my kind of personal take on a tier list for all the champions in God tier. And I put a lot of thought into the different tier names. So prohibitively difficult to counter, universally strong, flexible and powerful, solid role players, niche role players, and unfortunately there's a one that I consider a sad panda. And the reason that I liked these versus just the raw letters or talking about strong versus weak is other than Rattle Bones, I don't really see necessarily like linear power levels, right? A lot of them is how flexible, how hard is it to get them in the right situation. But as we've seen from the online tournaments that I've talked about in my last few videos, just about every champion has found significant success, even at the very, very top caliber of play. So that isn't to say that someone like Rattlebones or some of the more niche role players are going to be universally powerful on something like an SFG4 list, but it does mean that they are at least going to be viable under the right circumstances. So pair them with the right other three heroes. Make sure that you are either shoring up weaknesses or can leave them on your bench in situations where maybe they aren't going to excel. And the second tier list here on the lower right was the community aggregate. So I think this took about 10 or 12 relatively experienced God tier players all doing their kind of personal opinions on rank ordering, and then the kind of averaged between everyone in the Discord. And so I think that these are interesting kind of graphics, potential resources for looking at how universally powerful different champions are, or just kind of the community's perspective on on how often they feel high impact. But again, really easy to take some of this out of context, and so I will say use these with a grain of salt. Getting kind of to some shout outs. I've already shouted out Diced Ham once. I want to shout him out again. God Tier ATX YouTube channel recently just had a new drop on drafting and drafting strategy. The back and forth with Diced Ham and with Mr. Fishopoulos, and they've had a few guests here over the last couple. I think this last time was with the Old Crow, if I remember right. And it's kind of the witty banter combined with just the top-notch strategy play. Really highly recommend listening to these. They're really easy listens in the background, and just really have some strong foundational knowledge when we're looking at getting better at the Game of God tier. Also want to shout out the Banner Bearers podcast for anyone who's not familiar with them. They do kind of a semi-frequent longer podcast talking about the game. Really enjoy listening to them. They've got some wonderful insights, both in terms of just kind of culture and growing of the community, as well as game strategy and tactics as well. Wrap up, love to hear in the comments what type of tournaments you're most interested in. SFG4, 513, diminishing pool, limited pool, something brand new. Would be really interested to see what kind of the community is interested in. Also, as always, help with the algorithm. If you like my content, like and subscribe, make some comments. That makes it more likely that other people's interested in similar content will also find my channel. And until next time, guys, have fun, roll well. Bye.